Hello, this is Roland. Welcome. Today I want to talk about mystical Christianity. I was listening to a radio program today, and the host of the program actually did an excellent job of describing what mystical Christianity is. A mystical Christian, or a mystic, is someone who believes that God can be experienced directly, and not, in other words, not just known intellectually, conceptually, and actually not just known emotionally. See, emotions are fleeting, and emotions are deceptive, and emotions are, frankly, animal. So experiencing God is something for a soul. It's something for a soul. And the Christian mystic believes, and not only believes, but knows that they have and do experience God, and they generally want to share that with you. That's what Christian mysticism is. Prayer is actually right on the edges of mysticism, because isn't prayer supposed to be communion with God, communication with God? It is. So if one is communicating with God, you see, well, you see how close that is to experiencing God? So Christian mysticism is not anything that's weird or far out. As a matter of fact, it ought to be a fundamental part of all of our lives. See, we all have something missing. We go out in the world looking for our lost identity. See, we're always looking for something to join, something to identify with. We're looking for heroes to worship and admire and identify with, or a group or a cause, see, or a sports star or an entertainer or some leader. See, we're looking for our identity. And usually our identity becomes often tied up with our work. We say, well, I'm an accountant, or I work for this company, or see? But you see how shallow that is. Our identity ought to be with our Creator. We ought not to be identifying with other people, or with a group, or with a cause, or with an entertainer, or a star. We ought to identify with our Creator. Okay? And that's the way it originally was. See, Adam was made by God in the image and likeness of God. But then he fell away from a closeness to God, and he fell to what? To the serpent. And so he liked the lie, and since he liked the lie, he went for the lie, and then he changed. So he became more animal, and he became made of that to which he had defected, you see. So when you look at people like Noah, Abraham, Enoch, Elijah, Jeremiah, Isaiah, people like that, and then of course Christ, and Paul, and John, people like that. Or the true Christian mystics, people like Madame Guyot, Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, Brother Lawrence, okay, or even St. Augustine. See, people like that identified with God. They identified with God. That's where they took their identity. And so they looked to God for approval, for reinforcement, for what they were to become would come from Him and only Him. See, and because they identified with God first by faith, okay, and then by looking to Him only. And then by obeying Him. See? And, I might add, the sign of someone who will identify with God. The sign of the person who will one day find salvation is a yearning. See, a yearning, a searching for something. It's very much akin to, you hear some of these beautiful stories about, let's say, a father and daughter who are separated when she was a little girl. And through bad circumstances, upheavals, war, somehow or other, they became separated. And she never saw her father again. And then when she gets into her 20s, maybe 10 or 15 years after she'd never seen her father, or 20 years later, 30 years later, she begins to look for her father. She wants to find her father. And there are beautiful stories about such a child who searches and searches and finally finds her father. And there's always a beautiful reconciliation, the kind that makes you cry because it's so sweet. Well, it's something like that with the soul that yearns for God. It yearns for God. It's a very deep thing. Now, as you go around in the world, you will find people that are all messed up. All messed up. You might even find them, they might even be drug addicts. Okay? And just totally messed up. Usually because of they became angry. They became very angry and resentful toward the injustice and the cruelty which they experienced and beheld. But something in them is yearning for God. There's a part of them, deep part of them, that's yearning for God. And that is a sign. It's implanted by God, actually. See? It's implanted by God. It's that part of you that yearns for Him, and that one day, and then you begin to seek and find Him. So now, having said that, I want to read from Mr. A.W. Tozer, who, this host of the radio program, he did such a wonderful, nice job. He said A.W. Tozer is a Christian mystic. Okay? Now, if you haven't read anything from A.W. Tozer, then it might be good. He was very popular years ago. So A.W. Tozer, I want to read something from Mr. A.W. Tozer. And this is from his book called Pursuit of God. And so I'm reading from his preface. He said, I'm quoting A.W. Tozer now, "In this hour of all but universal darkness, one cheering gleam appears. Within the fold of conservative Christianity, there are to be found increasing numbers of persons whose religious lives are marked by a growing hunger after God Himself. They are eager for spiritual realities and will not be put off with words, nor will they be content with correct interpretations of truth. They are athirst for God, and they will not be satisfied till they have drunk deep at the fountain of living water." Okay. He goes on to say, "This is the only real harbinger of revival which I have been able to detect anywhere on the religious horizon. It may be the cloud the size of a man's hand for which a few saints here and there have been looking. It can result in a resurrection of life for many souls and a recapture of that radiant wonder which should accompany faith in Christ, that wonder which has all but fled the Church of God in our day." Okay? That's beautiful writing. Okay? So, a thirst for God. Okay? A thirst for God. Well, so Mr. A.W. Tozer said it very well. So if a part of you is yearning for truth, See? But you've never found it. See, everywhere you go, you get half-truths, or you get mealy-mouth answers, or you get confusion, or you get what appears to be true, okay, but then later, see, or you encounter someone that seems to have something special, but then later you discover they have feet of clay. Or worse yet, you discover that they're deceitful, or they have a secret agenda. See, but here's where you have to be very careful. Don't resent them. Don't get caught up with personalities. See, keep searching for the truth. Keep searching for the truth. See, it doesn't matter whose mouth. If something is true, then it rings like a bell. There's something in you that responds to it. Something in you that recognizes it. See, when you hear the truth, how do you know that it's true? Because you recognize it. If you recognize it, it means you already knew it in your heart. You just need to hear it or have it confirmed. Okay? And it's the inner testimony that's the important thing. See, it's called the inner light from God. Okay? So don't get caught up with personalities. In other words, just because a person appears to be a nice person, he may not be a nice person. On the other hand, a person which may not seem like a nice person, if he happens to say something that's true, then you see that it's true. Okay, well, then what he said was true. Okay, so it's the truth that you're after. Never mind who says it. See, I can pick up a book, and I scan the book, and I find one nugget. There's one thing in that book, okay, that strikes a responsive chord, that something in me responds to. And I see that it's true. Or it leads to a realization. You're looking for nuggets. You're looking for clues. When you hear the clue, it strikes a responsive chord. So you have to keep searching for truth and never mind people. Okay, so if you knew a Christian that wasn't so good, then don't worry about it. Just go about your business. Keep looking for the truth. Never mind people. People have feet of clay. A lot of people have been, they themselves have been hurt. They themselves have been penetrated, misguided, abused, fooled, tricked. See? They've never found the real thing either. But what Tozer is talking about is some of us are searching for the real thing. The real thing. Okay? So be careful not to resent other people. See, Christ warned us about that, didn't he? He said, forgive your brother. And then they said, how many times should you forgive another person? And he said, I forget what he said, but what he basically meant was always. See? Always forgive them. Or better yet, don't judge them in the first place. If someone is in error, let's say, or they do something wrong, well, see that it's in error, or see that it's wrong. In other words, discern that it's wrong. But just don't hate the person. See? Don't judge them. Don't discern. See? So when we think of forgiving other people, see, what do we think of? Well, we think of the grudge that we have against our father who wasn't there for us. So that's very important. So that is the most important thing to be thinking about first. That is, actually, to forgive your poor old dad. Okay? He never found the answer. When he was a little boy, people were cruel to him. See, he never found it. And he didn't have love because he couldn't give love because he didn't have love. He never found that bond with his father. He never found a rapport with his Creator. So forgive him, okay? The world was too much for him. So just forgive him. And your poor old unloved mom, see, forgive her, okay? And the person at school, the bully at school, forgive him. And your sister, if she was mean and said, put you down, then forgive her. Forgive everyone. Okay? Forgive means let go of the resentment. That's what it means. It doesn't mean you have to like them. It doesn't mean you have to pretend nothing happened. Okay? It doesn't even mean you have to have anything to do with them. Forgiving means letting go of the resentment, letting go of the judgment. Okay? For them and for people like them, or people who look like them. See? Everywhere you go, you encounter people that are like your dad, or like your mom, or like your teacher, or like a bully. See? They're everywhere. So just don't resent them. Okay? Don't judge them. Don't resent them. Let it go.